All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next edition of the F2C Pro Series. Today we have Nathan Killam, our professional firefighter, professional triathlete. His full-time side job, I should say, is his house handyman and renovation expert. Nathan, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Now, I know you've got kind of an interesting background in terms of how you got into athletics. So can we start there? Just a little bit about, how you got into sports, how you got into triathlon, what that entrance was like for you?
Yeah, it was I would say it was more of an accident than anything. So coming out of high school, I did, the usual Canadian sports, hockey and baseball growing up, but I was the catcher in baseball and I was the goalie in hockey, so not really super aerobically minded positions. And coming out of high school, I gained a lot of weight, got up to 210 pounds. And then just after a year, I decided things weren't going so well. My health was kind of declining, and I thought, okay, I have to make a change. So I just changed my diet, went to the gym, ran on the treadmill 3 times a week for 20, 25 minutes, lifted some weights, and got my weight back down. And then I started running a bit more and doing 10Ks. Just the sun. We have a big race here called the Vancouver Sun Run, which would have like 60,000 people running. So I do that every year, and just slowly got faster and faster at the 10K. And then one year I tried to run as hard as I could and almost broke 40 minutes. And that was just off of basically running a few times a week and just kind of haphazard, just go out and run 5K or 10K. And then I all of a sudden just set this goal to break 40 minutes, and then slowly got into running a bit more and trying to go faster and faster. And then I actually broke my tailbone one, it was, what was it, New Year's Day. Snowboarding in Whistler is like 2 feet of fresh powder. First run of the day, we were kind of along the side of this black diamond run, and I just bailed off this huge ledge and landed on rocks and broke my tailbone. And was laid up for a couple weeks, couldn't really do much. So I thought, okay, I got to do something. I'm just laying around. I can't barely walk. I'm on crutches. So I'll go to the pool and I'll put a pool boy in, and I'll just learn how to swim. And the lifeguards there help teach me how to swim. So that was kind of my entrance into swimming. And I wasn't really riding yet. And that summer, I decided to do a half marathon just kind of on a whim. And I ran a half marathon. And first, I have no idea why, but I got home from that half marathon and decided that I was going to take my dad's old 10 speed and ride it to the Canada US border, which sounds all heroic and stuff, but it's actually, from where we lived, it was probably only, I don't know, 40K to the border. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take this thing. It's way too big. Is probably from the 70s, like, and it was a cheap Sears bike from the 70s, so it was a piece of crap and probably weighed 50 pounds, but I did it. I bonked so hard halfway back, and it was brutal. And then I just got it in my head I was going to start riding this thing to work. For some reason, it was like a 14K each way to work, and I'd put my lunchbox on the rat trap. And so I started doing that and was able to run again after I healed up from the broken tailbone. And then a friend of mine just said, "Hey, you can you can swim and you can bike and you can run. You should do this thing called a triathlon. They do one near my cabin out in Harrison Mills." So I signed up for this triathlon, and that was, I think, 2017. And as soon as I finished that race, I was like, "This was the coolest thing ever. I got to keep doing these." So I just kept going, and the rest is kind of history. So it was kind of, if I hadn't broken my tailbone, I just don't see any avenue that would have brought me to triathlon. So it was kind of an accident, but a good accident.
Yeah, and the accident there was the only reason that you got into the pool. Is that right? Otherwise, you
Absolutely.
probably never would have seen the sport of swimming.
No, and I mean, I may have ridden the bike, but I definitely wouldn't have gotten in the pool. And I remember the first pool I learned to swim in was only probably 14 meters or so. It was a really tiny pool. And I remember swimming, I felt like I was swimming for an hour. And I was like, yeah, I'm the best. I've swam so far. And I think it ended up being like 500 meters or 400 meters. And that was like my first few swims in this little tiny pool. And yeah, I don't see me getting in the water without breaking my tailbone. That was the whole reason I got in the water, because it was the only thing I could do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of us have been there. You go through some kind of injury, and typically the pool is a safe space because it's zero impact, and if you got some issues you got to worry about like a foot or something, you can still avoid it pretty easily. So,
Absolutely.
but that's amazing. So your first race was 2017. You've had a pretty rapid rise in the sport and becoming earning your pro card. So, what would you say were some of the real keys to that successful run that you've had over the past now 4 years?
Yeah. I think the first thing I did was I went to a triathlon store and I was talking with the person who worked there, and she was teaching me all this stuff. And this was right before the first race. I knew not absolutely nothing about the sport. And like, you could do a little searching on the internet, but this is like, it was a lot better to get information in person. So talking with this person, and she was awesome. She helped me through, and then she recommended right away. She's like, "Look, I think you should get a coach because you did pretty good in your race, and getting a coach is going to be really good for you." And I got a coach right away. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I can say to people, especially people who are new to the sport, is getting a coach or some kind of guidance from somebody who knows what they're doing. Because if you don't know what to do with your time, then it's better to just spend the time doing the right things as opposed to just kind of fudging your way through it and making mistakes and doing things that may not be the most efficient use of time. So that's probably like my number one recommendation is seeking somebody who can help you.
Yeah, for sure. I did a little bit of that kind of self-searching or tried to do some self-coaching for a while and quickly learned that random training begets random results. So having that structure in place is a huge help to guide your time and efforts.
Hmm.
So as you've been in the sport over the last 4 years, what have been some of the highlights?
Sorry, 14 years.
Oh, 14. I'm
2007,
sorry,
not
2007.
2017. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. Sorry, say that again.
Some of the biggest highlights and maybe some of the low points that you've had to come back from since you started in the sport.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the low point, I guess, and so we can finish on a high. In 2012 or 2013, I believe it was, I became anemic. I just didn't have a great diet. I didn't eat any meat, and I didn't eat a ton of protein. And I just kind of was like not eating enough just in general and training really hard. So my iron levels kind of like slowly went down and down, and I ended up being anemic probably later in the 2013 season. And that was really a low point because I'm sure there's some people listening who've had some form of anemia in the past, and it's not really great. You just have no energy, no strength, no power, and tired all the time, and it's pretty brutal. And then I got professional guidance from that, and that made a big difference. And then the years after that, when I got my iron back up, that's when I started having breakthrough performances. And then I would say the highlight of my career so far was coming third place in 2019 at Ironman Mont Tremblant to Lionel Sanders and Cody Beals.
Hmm.
Which that was a special day. I have the video still of the finish line, and like every time I see it, it brings back a lot of emotions that were, I can't think of too many other things that have had emotions like that. So that, and probably my third place at Wildflower, the year before, I believe, 2018. Yeah, I think it was 2018. The last Wildflower that ran, that was pretty amazing. Coming third to Jesse Thomas, and can't remember who won that year, but yeah, those are the two results that I always remember.
Yeah, well, those are two pretty solid races against some very strong athletes. I mean, a couple of icons in the sport, and
Hmm.
especially at Mont Tremblant. That's a pretty cool experience to have in your back pocket there.
Yeah, that was a real breakthrough day for me. Everything just, I didn't have a great bike, but it was steady, and then I just had a really good run, and the swim was my best swim I've ever had. So like coming out basically with Cody Beals was pretty good for me. So yeah, I think I was the second guy out on the bike. So that was pretty big for me. Um, yeah, that was something else.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So I'm curious, how long did it take you to get into long distance racing? Because I know, at this point, obviously you've got some very strong experience and results in that format, but also competing in the Super League Triathlon Series, which is a totally different animal of racing. So how do you balance the two? And do you have a preference between one or the other?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like having kids. You can't really say you love one more than the other. They're just all awesome in their own way. And that's my feelings toward long course and like the Super League, Super Sprint series type of racing. Obviously, I'm a lot better at the long course racing than I am over the short distance. I don't have a short course background. I basically, my first 3 races were sprints that I ever did, and then I did an Olympic, and then I did a half. So like by my first full year of racing, I'd already done a half in June. Uh, so it didn't really take me long to get into the long course racing. My first coach refused to coach me in an Ironman. He said I was too young, which was true. I think I was 21 or something when yeah, it would have been 21 or 22 when I started triathlon. So he said, I won't coach you through an Ironman until you're at least 25 or 26. And I said, okay. And then my next coach, it was who I'm with now, Bjorn Ostenbrink, who I've been with since 2010. He basically said the same thing. He said, I don't think you should do a full Ironman yet. I think you're still a little young. And I appreciate both of those guys not letting me race, because most people want to like do Ironman immediately, right? So yeah, that was a big benefit of not going right into Ironman. But I didn't do very much short course racing. It was basically 70.3s. Even when I started Ironman racing in 2012, like it was still only one a year, if that. I've had years in the past couple years where I don't do one, but this short course Super League stuff is so exciting. Like Ironman is such a long day, and there's a lot of patience required, and you kind of have to keep your emotions out of the racing, and you just have to race with your brain. Whereas Super League racing, there's no time to think. You can't you can't wait to make decisions. You have to just make decisions immediate, like as the race unfolds, and like you have to race with your heart, because there's not much pacing. Like it's just all out right from the gun. Like you redline and then you redline some more, and then you try not to get eliminated. So it's pretty darn exciting stuff. And I mean, in 2019, I did a Super League race 2 weeks before Ironman Mont Tremblant. So I mean, like balancing is like I was training for Ironman, and I did pretty well in the Super League race. I didn't make it to the final. Like I didn't qualify for the final, like the championship series again, but still did reasonably well even with my weaker swim. But yeah, I mean, it's just 2 different formats, and I think they're equally as exciting. And I mean, I was slated to race some Super League last year, actually down in Tempe. I know
Oh, yeah,
you're
yeah,
in Phoenix, right? Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. So I was supposed to race in Tempe in May last year, but obviously that kind of got kiboshed with all the COVID things. But yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna do them when the opportunity presents itself, because it's just really fun, and the training is a little different. But I mean, I showed in 2019 that you can kind of gear yourself towards ones like the long course racing and still sprinkle in some intensity to do the short course stuff. So yeah, I think I think both have a place in a season for sure.
Yeah, well, and that high end work certainly just helps keep the engine sharp, anyways, and it's not like it's going to harm your training for an Ironman as long as you're not too close to race day. So
Yeah, I mean, like I had to fly to Ottawa, so I had to fly to the other side of the country. I did the Super League race. It was over what, two days, I think. Then stayed one extra day, did a big long ride, and then I came home, and then I flew back over to Montreal, which was like very very close to Ottawa. So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of stress, but I think you're right. That intensity. I do a lot of similar intensity preparing for races anyways, so it actually worked out really well, I think. But yeah, I think just a well placed training for them can benefit the longer racing.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Super League race in Tempe. That is supposed to happen again this year. And I would say I'd hope to see you down here, but I know that's probably not likely given your travel restrictions up north. So
Yeah, I would have. I mean, if we had kind of been on our planned schedule with the vaccinations, I think there's a very good chance I would have been down there.
mhm.
But I know for us Canadians, it's just it's just not worth it. I'd have to come down over 2 weeks before the race,
Right.
quarantine, then I'd have to do the race, come back, quarantine for another 2 weeks. So you're looking at 5 weeks to do the race.
Yeah.
So I can't justify that work, and it's not before we have the vaccines. It's not really responsible of me as a first responder and public service worker to be doing unnecessary travel. So it's kind of where I have to kind of put you know my firefighter hat on and decide what's best for me and for the people around me, and do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, certainly understand and respect that decision. I mean, even without your firefighter role, dedicating 5 weeks for a single race just doesn't seem practical. So,
Yeah. I mean, there's some guys, there's been a bunch of the Canadians that have, they have the luxury of being able to, they go down, they quarantine, and they just stay in the States and they stay with somebody there and just train, and then
mhm.
they can do the races. And like, that's great. I think it's great that opportunity is there for guys who have the capacity to do that kind of travel and quarantining. But yeah, unfortunately, it's just not really not really functional for me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally understand. But as we do look ahead, racing obviously is starting to come back slowly but surely. So, maybe some of the highlight events in your past start to answer this question. But what are some of your favorite venues, or where would you hope to be racing this year if you had your choice?
Yeah, for sure. Wildflower is always top of the list. It's not going to be going this year. I
Mhm.
haven't heard anything about that race yet. So I know they have new ownership, and I would hope that in 2022 they'll be back. But that's always a favorite of mine. Like, it's a gnarly course. It's hard. It burns you if you don't play your cards right. Um, Ironman Canada, that I've they're planning to have a pro race, and it seems like the travel restrictions will hopefully be lifted and everything will be closer to normal by the time the end of August rolls around. So I'm
Mhm.
pretty optimistic that race will go off, and I'm excited because this will be the first year Ironman Canada's back in Penticton since 2012, which was also my first Ironman I ever did. So that's really exciting that I'll be able to toe the start line again of an iconic race that's back in its home location. So that's probably a big A race for me this year. Based off of the timing too, it's a fairly safe assumption that it'll go off. So that's going to be my primary focus. But then there's also, unfortunately, I won't go back to Mont Tremblant for the Ironman because it's, I think, a week or two before Ironman Canada, and
Dicton.
I've tried I've tried racing Ironman and another event that close together, and they're just, yeah, when you have the Ironman first, it doesn't really work out so well for the second race. But 70.3 Mont Tremblant is pretty likely to happen, so I'm hopeful that event will go off, and I'll probably go over there for that. And then it's really just when the travel restrictions lift. I'd like to go back to Coeur d'Alene 70.3. I'm not sure if that'll be able to happen, but I think it's in July, so ideally, things are looking better. I'll be racing in Alberta for the True North Tri-Fest, which
Okay.
is run by Mike Brown, who would have been running the Super League in Tempe. So he's got a new race out in Alberta, so I'll probably go over there and they have a pro race, so that should be fun if it goes as planned, which I would hope. Like, I've heard that we should be getting our vaccines pretty soon. They're moving on to phase 2, so yeah, pretty optimistic.
Yeah, well, and hopefully for your sake, you have it sooner than later as a first responder as well. Maybe that puts you a bit further up in the line in terms of, phasing and the rollout.
Yeah, we're scheduled for the second phase, and they're just rolling into the second phase now. So I would think by mid-April we'll be vaccinated. So we're supposed to, apparently we're going to be potentially helping give the vaccines at gymnasiums and stuff to our local community. So we would definitely have the vaccines by then. So I'm I'm pretty hopeful. I mean, that's all I can really do, right? You know, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best, right? So
Yeah,
I'm
for
just
sure.
gonna keep training for these races, and even if I can only get a couple races in, then that's kind of the way it's gonna go this year. But it's looking really good for 2022 to be back to kind of normal. So
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be the case right now. So, good segue into a quick discussion around training. How did you navigate the pandemic last year and, pool closures, potentially gym closures if that had an effect? Did you develop any new habits as a result of, needing to get creative or find a new way to be effective with your training last year?
yeah, I mean, right off the bat, daycare's closed, so I became like the primary childcare most days. I had to alter my work schedule doing shift trades so that my wife could work. So that kind of complicated things. So I wasn't able to train so much through basically, what was it? The first week of March is when we shut down. So basically all the way through to May, I just would get training in on the weekends when I could, and then in the first thing early in the morning, and then in the evening after. So my wife would work, and then I'd let her get her little workout in, and then I'd do a workout after that. So there was definitely a lot of Zwift racing just to kind of get like a very good compression of time into a small window, get some good work in. But then once daycare opened in May, yeah, I mean, things weren't looking really good. I was not optimistic last year that racing would come back, although I hoped it would. The landscape was just not looking good by May, June. So I had a new mountain bike I had gotten the previous winter, and I just ended up riding the mountain bike a fair amount. We lived right on the mountain, so I could just ride up into the trails, and did a lot of mountain biking just to kind of get my mind off of everything that was going on. So that, I guess, would be maybe a habit, or just a change of pace to kind of ease the frustration of not being able to race. And we had no pools open until, oh, I think we had our big outdoor pool was open. We have a 150-yard outdoor pool.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
that's crazy.
137.5 meters. Yeah, it's
I've
massive.
never seen a pool like that.
It's big. It has two big lines, and you basically just stay to the right of the lines if you're swimming, and then you pass on the left side of the line. So if you're going one way, you just stay on the right line. If you're going the other way, you stay on the right line. And it actually works pretty well. But yeah, so I was able to book in swimming occasionally there through the summer, but it was still pretty tough to get in, and they would sell out soup. It was the like 9 a.m. on Monday morning. You'd be sitting there waiting, and then you try to book, and it would just like the whole website would crash, and like my friends are texting me like, this thing crashed, this thing sucks, what's going on? And we had a really, just to go along with COVID, we had really bad weather last year. Like, it didn't feel like summer until August. Like, we had
Jesus.
a brutal June and July. They were cold and rainy. So even open water swimming here was cold. Like, and I don't do that well in super cold water. And I remember I think it was early July, I tried to go in the water, and I made it 50 meters and just turned around, came back. It's like, nope, no, I'm out. So, but then luckily in October on the North Shore here where I live, where the mountains are, the pools reopened, and the master swimming started again. So I was able to kind of get back into an actual rhythm of swimming, and it took a little while, but eventually once I kind of shook the cobwebs out, I got back in the pool, and that kind of like got me, oddly enough, that kind of got me motivated to get training hard again. I mean, when I was doing my big reno, swimming was about the only thing I would do. I would swim at 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. in the Masters, and then I'd be at the house until 10 or 11 at night. And yeah, so there wasn't a lot of running and biking going on for the window of renovations. But yeah, through the summer it was a lot of just doing things out of enjoyment, getting it up into the trails because we live in the mountains. There's a big provincial park with really gnarly single track for running, and I thought I've always wanted to do this type of running and never been able to, so I just changed it up and tried some different uh, disciplines of running and biking, and just decided to find enjoyment in the year, because it was really, by the midsummer, it really looked like there was no racing going to happen for Canadians, at least anyways. There was always kind of that maybe in the States, but in
Yeah.
Canada it was like pretty obvious we weren't going to be racing. So yeah, I just tried to find enjoyment out of the year, and it really worked. I think it was a good year to, I've been racing hard for 13 years, so it was nice to kind of get a year to give my body a rest. There was a lot less intensity, just have fun with everything, and like I feel a lot more refreshed this year and just ready to do work. So I think, of all the negative aspects of last year, I think there's some positive takeaways.
Yeah, well, it's cool. It sounds like it was, a blessing in disguise and a chance to make very different but really good use of the time. From a lot of the pros that I follow, I've heard that, they kind of took the time to do what some call just soul filling training, without too much structure, finding things that they really enjoy. For you, running on the trails, the single track riding. And I could tell, at least it seemed, that you were having a blast with it. I follow you on social, and for anybody that doesn't, Nathan's got some awesome videos from his trail riding, which are always fun to watch. So it's pretty gnarly out there. I've never done any kind of riding like that, but it looks like fun.
Yeah, and I mean, this is shore riding is what they call it, and this is where shore riding originated. It's an entire like discipline and style of riding in like the terrain, and like this was the birthplace of shore riding structures, big wood structures. Like this is where it all started in the 80s, and it's pretty cool to be at like the birthplace of this type of riding. And it is, let me tell you, it is gnarly. Those videos that I posted were of like the easy trails. You should see some of the craziness. And like through the winter this year, I've been really stepping my game up, riding a lot of double blacks and like big drops, big hucks. And yeah, I plan to do some more Xterra and mountain bike racing this year. And it's just really good. Mountain biking is like a totally different style of riding. Like there's a lot of raw power and high torque, and just like whole body, like you're just pumped by the time you finish a big descent going full tilt. Like you are just pumped, your whole body is just wrecked. Like you're breathing hard for 10 minutes. And
I bet the adrenaline's just through the roof on a course like that. Yeah.
yeah, even if you're riding a climb hard, if you punch it on a descent, your heart rate is higher on the downhill than it is on the uphill. Like here it is just, you're all in. It's like some kind of crazy CrossFit workout on a bike. You're just full tilt, and it's amazing. Like you just, yeah, it makes you so strong. You just feel so strong, and then it translates when you get on the road bike. Like you just feel strong, and then the fitness from the road and tri bike just transfers over. So it's just a lot of fun, and I'm planning
Yeah.
to do some more videos. I do a lot of my aerobic riding in the trails right now because it's still a little too cold to be out on the roads and a little too wet. But
Mhm.
I find it's totally manageable in the trails because you're going slow. So you just, it's pretty easy to keep your heart rate at a really aerobic level. And then you just get some nice little descent intervals and then back to aerobic riding. So it's actually a pretty fun way to like, change it up a little bit for the aerobic portion of the rides.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's been fun to watch, so I will certainly keep an eye on your channels. But it's interesting. It sounds like you might try to translate that into a bit of new format of racing for you,
Yeah,
Xterra and whatnot.
yeah, I've done some Xterra racing and mountain bike racing in the past. Probably in the past like 4 or 5 years, I've done a few races. I did the Cross Worlds, the ITU Cross Worlds when it was in Penticton.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I flatted, which sucked because I was starting to pull guys back on the descent, but then the shale did its thing and wiped out my rear tire. But yeah, I'd like to do Xterra Victoria this year if it goes off. It's in July, and it's an easy
Okay.
drive for us. It's just across the ferry, and it's allegedly the most challenging technical course on the Xterra circuit, even though it's not really that challenging. But that's my kind of jam, is like the harder the better. Um, but yeah, and then I'll just, we have a ton of local mountain bike races, so it's kind of like a good way to get like a hard race effort. And,
Mhm.
you get that adrenaline from racing, and race experience is race experience, because the feeling you have at all the different races is always the same feeling. So the more racing experience you can get, the more you can kind of harden yourself to deal with the adrenaline and the nerves. And then I find like it just gets you into this kind of almost nonchalant feel when you, like, even when you go to an Ironman, you're just kind of like, yep, I'm here. We're doing this. Like, it's going to happen. And I've done the work, or I haven't done the work. And it's
Right.
just, it's just going to be what it's going to be. And you kind of, through lots and lots and lots of racing, you just kind of get that, like, you're excited, but you're calm. You're just going to let it happen.
Yeah.
So that's one of the aspects I enjoy of racing so often on these, smaller disciplines, is you just get that experience.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, coming near the end of time, but want to wrap up with a couple of quick questions. First would be, you've had some pretty diverse experience both as an athlete and outside of your athletic pursuits. What one piece of advice would you want to give to, either young and upcoming athletes, or even folks that are in their middle age and have been doing this for, maybe 6, 8, 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, for especially the young athletes, I would say, and it's easy to say this and it's so hard to receive this, but patience. Just look at the long game. And that's what I did. I started with my current coach 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago. And I said, look, you know, I don't want to be winning. Like, I'm not going to be winning Ironmans next year, but I want to be winning Ironmans in 10 years and 15 years. Like, I want to have the long game. So you just have to kind of have that patience to know, you might not be winning races tomorrow, but if you just put in the work and you just trust the process and respect the grind, and listen to your body and treat your body well, it's going to happen. You just got to give it time and patience. And the same goes for people who are middle aged, getting into this sport. Get help, get guidance, find a mentor, find someone to help you use your time wisely. Listen to your body. Like, don't work yourself into a hole. And your body, you can wear your body down and it'll become useless in the sport. So take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of your family and your relationships. That's a big one that is easy to be neglected, especially if you first get into the sport and you're super excited about it. Just find ways to work around it with your family, and include your family in it and make it something that everyone can be excited about. So
Mhm.
it's kind of boring things to say, but yeah, I think you really need to take care of yourself, take care of your body, and just take care of the all aspects of your life around the sport. And that just makes it an enjoyable process. And you don't get bitter at the sport, and it'll help you show up with a smile every time you go out for a workout, and when you show up on race day. And it'll make it all worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, you say it might sound boring, and I know what you mean, but still, I think some very wise counsel. Just be patient, find a mentor, take care of yourself. I mean, those are really some of the really core principles, I would say, in finding long-term enjoyment. And you get into a sport like this, it's something you want to do for a long time. It's not a 12 to 24 month endeavor for most of
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah, and especially the bike is one that I've learned and I've seen. If you don't have a biking background, it doesn't just come in a year. Like,
Yeah.
you have to just work. And you have to it's time in the saddle. It's time well spent in the saddle, and it'll come, but it's going to take time. So you see and hear these people who, like, hey, he's 40 years old and he gets into this triathlon sport and he's just crushing everybody. But they forget to mention that he was like a collegiate national rowing champion and like grew up cross country skiing, and like he has the aerobic engine of a freight train. Like they don't tell you that. Or he was a steeplechaser, NCAA steeplechaser, like a Div 1 guy. Like those, the outliers are out there, but you are you, and you just need to kind of play to you. Don't worry about the other guy or the
Yeah.
other girl. Just
Yeah.
play to you.
Meet yourself where you are today, not where you want to be in 5 years. Yeah.
Exactly.
So last one, your favorite F2C product and why is that?
Oh man. That's a good one. It's man, that's tough. I'll say glycodurance, because you can use it for pre-workout, in workout, and even if you run out of protein, if you can get some kind of protein, you can get the post-workout use out of it. So I think it's like the most diverse product. That's probably the one that I go through the fastest and I use it the most. Like even if I run out of rehab, which is probably like a tight second place, I can still make recovery product out of the glycodurance. So, and that's the one I use the most in racing. So that's probably my favorite one. And actually, I don't know if you've tried the newest one. Is really good. It works really well.
The new flavor?
No, the new glycodurance. They've changed the carbohydrate in it.
Oh no, I haven't gotten the new carb
Yeah.
complex. No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It mixes real nice. It's real good. And then I have to say, the Ketodurance grape.
Yeah.
Grape drink. Like, it's the best. It's so good. I use it almost every single mountain bike ride. I'm using it. Like if I go out in the trails running for like a long run, I'll take it with me, and just a little flask. Like that stuff tastes amazing. I'm going to be using it for racing this year. I planned to use it last year racing, but no racing. So I'm going to be using it with glycodurance this year in the races, in my bottle on the bike and the run. So I'm excited I find it's a really good product, but I'd say Glyco, just because it's the most diverse product.
Yeah, very, very practical answer, which I can appreciate.
Yeah.
But I do like that grape Ketodurance. That's another one of my go-tos.
Well, if you mix it with the unflavored Glyco in a bottle, like
that's
grape
true.
drink all day.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Grape drink, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So Jen Annette was on our Pro Series for the last episode, and we've now got 2 votes for glycodurance. So we're gonna have to keep a running tally and see which product has the most votes when we get through a number of these. But not surprised to hear Glyco's got another vote. It's very popular among our team, I think.
I mean, it's hard to bet against the heavy hitter. Like it's like you never bet against the crowd favorite.
That's right. That's right. So I got to ask one more question. What flavor side are you on when it comes to Glyco?
Oh, mango.
Yeah, team mango. That's right. All the way. That's my pick.
Yeah, even the farmer greens, like the mango, it just works. I can't say I dislike any of the like the farmer green flavors, but like mango, just like a nice smooth way to start your day.
Yep.
And like I can't say I've ever had mango, like even on super long rides. I can't say that I've ever had it and just been like, I'm done with this.
Yeah,
like
that's
it just
right.
goes
I never
down.
get tired of it. And it's pretty much all I use in my bottles, and mango doesn't go nasty on me at all. So
yeah, I like
cool.
it. What flavor of rehab are you?
Vanilla.
I'm
all day.
Chocolate.
I'll have to give it a try. I don't think I've ever had it. I think I've had a sample, but
I'm just a chocolate. Anything even remotely chocolate flavored, just sign me up. Just put it right in my mouth. I'm just eating it.
Yeah, the Pharma Pure, now that is chocolate is my favorite of those.
Have you? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well,
for sure.
It's basically the same type of flavor for the rehab. It's like just a little bit more subdued because there's more carbohydrate in it. But yeah, have you ever tried the what was it, like the caramel chocolate? Pharma
one of
Pure,
the old,
or
yeah,
the
I
old
think I
ones.
did actually.
Oh man, this stuff will knock your socks off. Chocolate peanut butter, get out of here.
That was one of my old favorites. Yeah, when we were
It's like
still doing this.
dessert.
It is exactly.
Like I just want to do a workout so I can have some of this.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, listen, Nathan, had a lot of fun with the conversation. Some very sound advice to our fellow athletes out there. We wish you the best this year and hope to see you on the race course soon.
Thanks a lot, Matt. It was a pleasure to talk with you, and I hope somebody takes something away from this.
I think so. A lot of good bits in here. Cheers,
Perfect.
Nathan. Take
We'll
care.
see you out there. Bye.